That a 6-card hand for Laurent. And a foil Hydroid Crazes, I think that was. So on the left, Gates down 1 card. On the right, Dylan on Elementals. And we are off to the races! As all lands come into play tapped, but life total on Dylan's side is going up. Laurent has Growth Spiral open here. Is also bluffing a Quench as a Cloudkin Seer enters the fray. Draws a card for Dylan. Growth Spiral. For Laurent to develop his board further and not stay behind here. Does seem to have some options and some thinking he needs to do here on that critical turn 3, where you have Gates Ablaze, Guild Summits, Gatebreaker Rams, and it's a Guild Summit. Follows it up with a land, immediately draws that extra card of it. As Dylan pokes in with the Cloudkin Seer. So the advantage is on Laurent's side with that Guild Summit on the board though, so Dylan will need a bit of a power play here, and that's exactly what he needs to keep up with Laurent. So we have the two most oppressive draw engines of the format on the table here, Guild Summit and Arisen Reef. So a Neoform on that Cloudkin could become a Scampering Scorcher, giving him 3 Risen Reef triggers and allowing him to run away with this game. As any elemental he plays before that will also benefit from the haste that the Scorching Scamperino brings to the table. And yes, people frowned when I said that. Alright, Gate Colossus. For Dylan. Ooh, we see a Teferi's Time Twist. And I do think the Neoform is in his hand. So he could Neoform away the Cloudkin, get the Scampering Scorcher, blink the Scampering Scorcher, get 6 triggers off his Risen Reef. I think that is going to be the plan for him. I see him fondling that Neoform, but he wants to do a Rootkin first. It's not a Rootkin. Ah, what's the name of Leafkin? Yeah, a Leafkin Druid for that first trigger. So this one Neoform does need that green. And he's attacking first, so he won't be attacking and sacrificing the 1 token in the attack here, if that's the plan. So we have Neoform. Is it going to be the Scampering Scorcher, or does Dylan have an even better plan for us? There's an even better plan. Omnuts. A locus of the royal deals damage to target equal to the number of elementals you control. So 3 to the face. And he now has a bunch of extra. I think they're forgetting the +1/+1 counter. Yep, there we go. They can't hear me. So, no, it's the land drops. I'm just gonna call out the mistake. I'll be right. There we go. Just gonna get that corrected. So the judge is just making sure they get the story right before they apply the fixes. In the meantime, a Gates Ablaze has been played. So there's actually extra information available. And the Gates Ablaze is for, I think it's for 5. In response, oh, the Teferi's Time Twister is it's not an instant blink, it's an end of turn blink. The next end step. Huh. Did he again forget to put the counter on it? I'll be right back. Okay, so that's been corrected as well. I did realize just as I ran up the stairs. So the time twist. And we get a Risen Reef. Whew, need to catch my breath a little bit. Ran up the stairs too fast. So Omnat gets triggers as well. Dylan does not control extra lands yet. Well, 8 lands, so he doesn't draw a card yet. But with that Risen Reef on the battlefield, it looks like he might be getting there pretty fast. So there we go. Sorry for the switching colors. So Dylan maneuvered around the first gates ablaze here. Hasn't lost that much. As we keep going in this match. And with the pings that the Omnot has done to Laurent, he's even winning this race with even land drops becoming very, very scary at this point. So Laurent in the tank. He could die next turn here, and I think he's very much aware of it. Trying to piece together a sequence that gets him out of here. So you see players, even uh, Gates sometimes has decisions to make. It's usually a very straightforward deck to play. So Laurent has chosen one path here, 6 mana for a Niv Mizzet Barun. According to a lot of people, a bit outdated at this point. I still play it myself, so I'm not arguing against him for playing it. I think that's a Scampering Scorcher that Dylan just top decked. Could it be? Oh, he's also holding a Neo form. So he has. Dylan has a lot of options here. He could. He could Scorch. Scampering. Scampering. I think he went to ask something. Elementals gain haste and Neo form. Is that a? It's a sorcery. It's a sorcery. Okay, so you can't get tricky with that. So Dylan stepped away from the table again. Nif Bizzet is the best, beats the rest. Then again, I haven't followed the game for nearly a year. Yeah, Nif Bizzet has a lot of competition as in the Gates deck. In the Drake's deck, I think he's still an auto include in any version of Blue Red. But in the Gates deck, you now have a bunch of really good planeswalkers. I think I would cut Niv before I cut my mass manipulation. Apparently, there's it's a question about the deck lists. I think Dylan is just making sure he's not neo forming for something he doesn't have. Yeah, yeah. This is I think Sander also built this deck for them. So Sander brought this gauntlet of what he thinks the top three decks are: Drakes, Gates, and Elementals. Still up to the rest of the meta game to prove that there's more to it than that. With control, food, Black-based Disruption, Cavalcade of Calamity mono red, all being options. There's a Boros aggro deck here as well, and the Artifact Synergy decks and Mill decks currently have a bit of a name of being a bit too gimmicky, but uh, definitely can cause blowout games as well. Risen Reeve in the meantime, in this match, we get a bunch of triggers. Do remember that every land that comes into play is an Omnat trigger here. So Omnat gets to put plus counters, and I think he gets to draw a card off the 8th land as well. Never a land, put a counter. If you control 8 or more lands, draw a card. Yeah, he's reading the ability. Yeah, he figured it out. 8 lands, draw a card. Alright. So there's an Oko there as well. Not going for a Neoform for the Scampering Scorcher. Instead we get Oko, the Thief of Crowns. Laurent reading this rarely played card. And he turns the mighty Niv-Mizzet into an elk. So Niv-Mizzet is the best, beats the rest, except when he gets turned into an elk. 3-3, loses flying, loses ability, loses power and toughness. Pretty nice ability for a 3 mana planeswalker with a plus ability. That's an unsummon from Dylan Kapow to return the Gate Colossus as Dylan comes in for a swing. I assume that means the Omnat is a 7/7 then, as that Risen Reef. Uh, no, it's a 6/6 then. Goes down to 1, I believe. Apparently, the logistics of the life total device are a bit challenging. So, Laurent on 1 needs a gate to blaze here pretty much. Oh no, there's only 2 threats on the board for Dylan, so he has that Gate Colossus that comes down for 2. But a blink on the Omnat will kill him now. He also has no way of gaining life in Gate stacks. Gate Colossus costs 1. And Dylan still has that Neo form in his hand to wrap up the game. 14 viewers in the meantime. Welcome. For those of you who know what you're watching, welcome. For those of you that don't, you are watching a Gentry leaderboard event. It's a budget version of standard that limits the amount of rares and mythics you get to play, though it wouldn't uh, you wouldn't think so if you see the current board. You're only allowed to play 4 rares and mythics, and they have to be 4 different ones. You're also limited to 15 uncommons in your main and sideboard. Growth Spiral is what I wanted, and this mouse is not scrolling fast enough. And they're playing something else in the meantime anyway. Ram Breaker. A Ram. Oh, no. Gatebreaker Ram. Uh, for Laurent, and the Gate Colossus is back as well. So he has a spare blocker here that Oko will be alchifying things. And we still have a lot of options for Dylan. Is that a Scorcher or is that Chandra Awakened Inferno in your hand? He doesn't have Chandra Awakened Inferno. He has Cavalier of Flame as well. It could be that, I suppose. Land comes into play. Omnet grows. Neoform on the Risen Reef will likely get the, yes, a Scampering Scorcher. Gets haste +1/+1s, a bound. That makes for 4 attacking creatures with Laurent only having 3 blockers. Turns the ram into an elk. Not much of a change there. Well, in power and toughness, yes, but biologically speaking, you know. Scorching Dragonfire, getting rid of another blocker, and attacks for 4 into the 2 blockers with Laurent on 1 life. That is Elementals taking game 1 off of a Gates player, trying to prove that yes, in fact, they are part of the top dogs as well. That Teferi's Time Twist being instrumental here in making sure there's a board left to play with. Otherwise, that Omnat would have died, and it ended up taking over the entire game, pretty much. Both providing a clock and pushing extra damage through onto Laurent. We have the deck lists here, so let's have a look. Dylan has Negate, Unsummon, No Escape, Run Away Together, and Return to Nature available to him. Those in summons have been pretty interesting for him. Runaway Together could be the extension to it. Return to Nature might be interesting as it can provide a permanent answer to Gate Colossus by exiling it out of the graveyard, as well as being able to destroy a Guild Summit. Negate's pretty interesting as well. But yeah, run the risk that you are holding a bunch of interaction in hand to deal with non-creature spells, and then Loden just goes Ram Colossus by, which you really don't want to be in. So Laurent, in the meantime, if I'm correct, and I'm checking with the judge here, Laurent is missing a part of his sideboard? Yeah. Okay. That's marked out. Okay, so there's only 4 duresses and 3 negates for him to sideboard with. Okay, we're going to game 2. Dylan on Elementals is 1-0 up, and if you can straighten up the life total a little bit when you're upstairs, don't rush. It's starting to smell good here. I'm in the smell of grilling cheese right now. It's horrible. I'm dying. So, chat, who of you is playing Gentry, and what are you playing? Also, welcome to the new people in the chat: Lurks, Nemesito, Bocardi, no, yeah, Bocardi, Ruby. It's been a while since we've seen Ruby, V and K. I'm still not sure if that's a real person or a bot that pops in, but I've seen V and K around tons of times. Same with Virgo Pros and WW.com. Don't go there. I find that a bit fishy. But okay, they're in the chat. They get a little shout out in the downtime because otherwise I have nothing to say and then it's awkward and then everybody runs away and I'm a lonely little boy staring at the computer talking to myself, which is awkward. Yeah. Game two, and again, Dylan one up. Smuffy is here. Hello, Smuffy. As Laurent goes to Mulligan again. He lost game one of a Mulligan to 6. I don't remember if it was on the play or on the draw though. Red Black Reanimator. That's an awesome deck as well. I've been mm, thought experimenting this deck. Blue Black Disrupt is pretty cool as well. And I'm gonna double check, but I think I'll be there in Brede. That's the first Saturday of every month. So the next one is on December 7th. And yes, I will be present for that one. And I hope I get to bring something fun. I hope I get to bring one of the few versions of food fight that I've been testing with. Laurent, in the meantime, seems to be keeping these cards. Still has to put one on the bottom, unless I missed the mulligan there. No, puts the basic mountain on the bottom. This version playing two mountain, two forts, two islands as their basics is something I don't do. The turn 3 play that I prioritize is the Ram or the Guild Summit. So my basics are three islands, three forests. And we have a Grazer for Laurent. This deck is pretty much a chiseled in stone at this point with 4 grazes, 4 growth spirals, a permutation of Guild Summit, Gates Ablaze, Gatebreaker Ram, and Gate Colossus. And then the rest is flex slots, but there's not much flex slots left after that. So we often see opts and duresses in those slots. Scorching Dragonfires. Mm, that's about it, really. So we see nice old school opts from Laurent here as he's trying to undo his mulligan. Digging for card quality as Dylan has a Leafkin Druid to try and keep up. One of the decks we haven't mentioned so far is Blue-White Flying. I still think that's a playable deck, even though it got neutered a bit with rotation and didn't get that much extra. It's in a pretty interesting position right now. Cloudkin Seer for Dylan and another land, making it look as though he's getting short on lands and undoing the life total straightening work of our judge. I really should just tape that thing to the table, but hey. Guild Summit for Laurent. So Dylan pretty much has to respond with a Risen Reef here, or will be starting to fall behind. There is one hiding in his hand there. So we have those options available. The funny thing with the awakened Inferno that Laurent is holding is that its sweeping ability only does damage to non-elemental creatures, so it's actually a whole part of the card that doesn't really do anything. Prison Reef, Chandra. So the Chandra's on the other side uh, in the hand. Oh, Laurent, and I think Gatherer is crashing on me, so the card viewer might be down for a few cards. No, there it is, very slowly clawing itself in there. Yeah, 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. Hoping to see Ian on stream next round. Uh, Very likely that he'll be. I'm actually trying to put everybody on the stream rather than focusing on the top decks, since we do have a playoff, a top 4 in this event. Um, but this is more about showcasing diversity than anything else. That's a Teferi's time twist on the Risen Reef. No, on a Cloudkin Seer, pardon. And this time, Dylan does remember to put +1/+1 counter. Risen Reef trigger, and that turned into a draw 2. Laurent brought the Gate Colossus as Dylan puts his second Risen Reef on the table. Still has 2 mana open there, still signaling that Teferi's Time Twist, or at least the possibility of it. As he keeps a healthy life total of the lands coming into play. The double Risen Reef does feel a bit greedy playing against Gates though, as uh, they eventually they will have their Gates Ablazes, but it looks like Dylan has decided Laurent won't have it, or has the counterspell for it, or is assuming that Laurent will think that he has the counterspell against it. A lot of multi-layered things going on. And there we have the card we have been talking about. So Gates Ablaze, capable of deleting Dylan's board here completely. But Dylan is keeping those 2 mana open. Gate Colossus, number 2 first. As number 1 comes in for a visit, the Cloudkin Seer can block here with its +1/+1 counter and gets unsummoned to keep the value engine going. Unsummon is cast and resolves. Yes, Cloud can see back to hand, but he has blocked that Gate Colossus, so preventing a lot of damage there. As Dylan has a full hand against the 4 card hand that Laurent has to work with, which is surprising considering the Guild Summit. Chandra hits the table. And like we said, won't be able to wipe the board. And I think that's a +2. Yes, so there is an emblem on Dylan's side of the board. As Laurent decides he's going onto the offensive here. With 2 Gate Colossus on the table and that emblem, it's starting to look a bit dicey for Dylan, for sure. So Dylan has some board building to do here. And this is the risk this deck sometimes runs. It has a lot of small effects, and sometimes you just don't manage to run them out fast enough to actually mount an offense. But it's not lost here, far from actually. So Cloudkin Seer has done a lot of work. This game keeps working though. Draw 1, look at the top 2. That's tapping prematurely, so I'm expecting a Neoform to come out here. The Cloudkin Senior was able to block the Gate Colossus because it was Teferi's Time Twister, so it has a +1/+1 counter and a 3 power there. We see Neoform hovering here. Yes, Neoforms away the Cloudkin. The Leafkin was tapped because he was afraid he might not have a 4th elemental, I suppose. Scorching Scamper. Scorching. Apparently, scorching something else. Scorching. No, Scampering Scorcher. Jesus. Scorcher. Scampering Scorcher. There we go. Scampering Scorcher comes out. Brings 2 tokens, brings triggers, brings haste. It's not looking super impressive. There are 6 Risen Reef triggers, but I'm not sure if that's what Dylan needs here. He is drawing a lot of cards, so the next Neo form could bring one of his 5-drop rares out. Or even Neo forming away one of the Risen Reefs to get an Omnot. There's a Runaway Together in his hand already. That's interesting. because that really neutralizes one of the gained Colossuses, um, while giving himself extra flexibility. As we see, oh, he has the Omnot in hand. Tap 3 because he still had one green mana floating from tapping the Leafkin earlier. So that's 7. That's one short of getting rid of a Gate Colossus for one turn. So it just goes face. Double trigger off the Risen Reefs and passes the turn. I think he'll need to discard a few cards there. Yeah. So when I said Dylan has some work cut out for him to make sure he gets on board here, he really took it to heart. Has a board now. Looks boardy. Don't forget, Laurent still has that Gates Ablaze in his hand though, and he's on 7 gates, which means that his Colossus will still be around after everything is said and done. Laurent swinging in, Dylan swinging into Laurent, who has some blocks to line up. Gate Colossus blocks a Risen Reef, and the Scorching Scamper or Scampering Scorcher, whatever it is. What's vibrating the entire time here? It's not me. Whatever. And Dylan is in the discarding details, yeah. Has tapped out to build this board. I actually wonder if throwing the Omnet out here at this point is worth more than having the Tiferi's Time Twister available to you. So it gets a second emblem. Plays an opt, pretending to look for that Gates Ablaze. And then puts the Gates Ablaze on the table. Dylan is tapped out here, loses everything, and those Colossus stay on the table. Something keeps vibrating, and I have no clue what anymore. Sorry, freaking out. There we go. Now Laurent poised to take game 2 here. As Dylan has to create minor miracles to make this happen. Does have double unsummon in hand, but those emblems will wipe him off the table in just 2 turns once a third one is added. Gatebreaker Ram came out after the Gates Ablaze, so there's even a blocker on the other side in case Dylan does manage to do something impressive. That is Cavalier. What's his face? Cavalier of Flame. And an unsummon. Unsummon, so that's 6 attacking for 9. But there's at least. Is there bump, or is he putting Laurent on one? Not sure what happened here. So, who won? So Dylan knew he had this huge punch available to him. But no, yeah, the attack was for 9. Laurent survives and kills Dylan on the backswing. That Cavalier missing just a little bit. Find it an interesting addition, the Cavalier, for specifically this reason. Um, Especially if you can have this kind of an wait, it attacked, so it had haste. It doesn't have haste on its own. So Dylan won? Wait, I'm very confused now. But whatever. Apparently it's 1-1 and we are going into game 3. Uh, I'm not sure what my brain is doing, or these players for that matter. Playing very quickly, I think both of them realize that time is of the essence here to finish a third game. Opt. Oh, opt. I hate opt. There we go. Opt. And we have a Cloudkin Seer as a response to the Grazer from Laurent, allowing him to run out. I see a Gate Colossus hanging out there, so if there's a fifth land and it's a gate, or not a gate, for, yeah, if there's a fifth land, then Laurent can run out the Gate Colossus here. Has a ram and uh, double Gates Ablaze in hand as well, but the 3 punch of a Gate Colossus might just be enough. Dylan has access to Scampering Scorchers, Time, Twister, and I think that's a Risen Reef. Yeah, oh, and Omnat. Or is that a Neo form? I'm not sure. Nothing is what it seems anymore. Scampering Scorcher for Dylan. Chooses not to attack, not even with the flyer, because it just runs into the Grazer. Yeah. Good morning. So Laurent has a free and wide open attack. Kapows for 8. And plays a second Gate Colossus here. So threatens lethal next turn already. That's Omnat, so Omnat will get to block. Gets rid of the Grazer, but doesn't attack. But doesn't attack with the Cloud Case here. Gates Ablaze and the kill. Yep, that's a handshake. Dylan showing the power of elementals, but Gates wins another match on the under the lights of the feature match lights under the lights of the feature match. Jeez, can't talk anymore, but it is not really relevant since you are here for other things than that.